All right, we're moving into the music section, the all music bus. We've got up first acoustic guitars. We've got a picked acoustic with some finger picking. We've got a strummed acoustic that comes in at the choruses. And then in another video, we'll jump into electrics and stuff. So focusing in on these acoustics. First up, the picked acoustic. If you remember, we've got all of these going to their own bus, ACS pick. And when we recorded this, Jairus, I love his vibe. I love his style. He taught himself to play guitar, and he's got this certain way of picking and strumming. It's not crazy, kind of like myself, just a very basic rhythm player, but he's got a nice little vibe to him. The only problem was the part required his hand to go back a certain way, and so instead of trying to make him play this all the way through, I broke it into sections, and you can see how I've got that overlapped, kind of like you would treat, a lot of us have done recorded vocals and done it that way. So I've got these all edited nice and tight. We're going to take a look at the before. This is a pretty dramatic difference, and it's not just a volume thing. We're going to boost the volume. We're going to listen to what this was, and then we're going to take it to what it is now. Okay, and then we're going to put the volume back. Let's show you the processing. Very cool. Stylistically, I wanted this to be bright, and I wanted it to have more of a happy, hopeful, bright tone, similar to the Jason Mraz track. So how I accomplished that, let's dive right in. We've got VCC. We've got FabFilter Pro Q2. The very basic use of this in this case is for removing the low stuff that I don't want. Everything below 85 is gone, and then I found a couple of frequencies here, 174, and then it looks like 254, that needed to be cleaned up. They were getting a little bit too muddy, and I have a sort of a wide bell on that. It's usually not uncommon when I'm working with lower frequencies to use wider bells, and then as I get a little bit higher, I'll get a little bit tighter and have a little bit more of a focused cut. But in this case, we're looking at just the lows. Let's hear. We'll go step by step so that we can really break this acoustic guitar part down. Let's hear before the fab filter. And then with it. So that just cleaned it up so that those low resonating frequencies got out of our way, so we can really focus in on the compression being, it's going to bring some of that back, give us a little bit more fullness, and help us to kind of balance the lows from the highs. Next up is the Studer, and this guy is just a preset from the acoustic, and then I'm turning off the noise and then dialing the threshold to taste, the input and the output. Let's take a listen to what this guy's doing. Here's before. And after. Let's listen to that a little bit louder. You can hear the compression that's going on. So we're just kissing that needle a little bit, letting that do some work for us. That's just a beautiful plugin. I love the Studer. A lot of times I'm processing the Studer before I mix. I'll do a pre-mixing session, and I'll pull the Studer in and apply that across multiple tracks. And actually, I did do that in the case of the bass guitar that you guys received in the files. Then we've got, excuse me, a little bit of action going on with the alloy. Pulled up in a preset. I can't remember which one, but it was probably, look at that, bright acoustic, classical acoustic. And this is going to be pretty much where the bulk of our top end is going to come from, is this crazy boost right here in the high end. Let's take a listen to what this preset did for us. Okay, cool. So like I said, we've got the high end that's boosting. We're cutting a little bit more of the lows. That was probably just part of the preset. Whenever I put the Studer on, it got a little bit warmer on us, so cleaning that up. The transient designer, very gently just pulling up some sustain, just to create a little bit more of a length to the notes. Excuse me. And then we've got the exciters, and that's where we're getting some of that brightness, is also driving the mix of the tube and the tape and the excitement. Sorry, the exciter. I'm losing my mind here. So let's hear it before and after the exciter. That's worth showing. Very cool. So using that as an EQ to drive up some top end. And then we've got our dynamic section where we're hitting in stages 2 compressors. Just kissing this first one. Just touching some of the peaks. We've got a very gentle ratio at 1.5. The second compressor, same thing. Very, very gentle. Just kind of touching it. And if I remember correctly, this was the preset. We mentioned the preset. What I did is I took the dynamics on this, and it was hitting it really hard, and I didn't like it. So I pulled it back just to kind of tap those peaks a little bit before it jumps into the next stuff. So when I referenced on my, I've got Yamaha HS5s, I've got a Bose computer speaker system, I've got the DT770s, the biodynamic headphones, and then I also use the Apple earbuds when I'm mixing for referencing. When I had the Apple earbuds on, I felt like I got way too much of the lows and the low mids. And so what I did is I opened up the FabFilter Pro MB, and I was able to set this for multiband compression and just hit down some of those low mids whenever they got a little bit messy on me. And take a look at when that's hitting. Just thinning that part out a little bit. Without it, so it's almost giving the part a little bit of air by pushing down those lows and low mids, and I really liked what it was doing. Very basically, that's just threshold to taste to reduce. It's really probably only reducing probably 3-4 dB, hitting it pretty quick, letting it be a little bit of a medium, fast to medium release, and that's just a control thing, just a little bit at a time. From there, I felt like I wanted to give it some more character, and I don't know that I've got much going on here except for some air. Yep, so we're boosting some 16 here, and that is going to some of the string noise and some of the just kind of the life of the guitar, I feel like, is up in that the player's fingers moving and some of that stuff, and I wanted to bring some of that out. So I pulled up in the Pultec. Once again, I used the Pultec, in this case, the latest version of the Pultecs from UAD, because they modeled the transformers, and it sounds incredible. So just like the LA2 that I mentioned over in the bass, I'm doing the same thing here. So let's take a listen before and after of this. Very cool. So pretty subtle moves across the board. Mostly the fab or the isotope kicking us into gear with the preset that we used. But then I'm gonna really kind of crank up the volume and bring things up with the Pro L. You can can see there's no compression happening. This is just for level. And then next up, the lovely LA2 Gray from UAD again. Barely any compression. I'm mostly using this for the character that it gives. Excuse me, anybody who's seen my YouTube stuff, you'll know that I like this on my master bus. It sits, the Pultec and the LA2A Gray sit on my master bus just because of the character that they give. Mixing in the box, I feel like if there's any one company that gives us something a step ahead of the other plugin manufacturers, it would be Universal Audio because of the modeling that they do. I'd say Slate is right there with them. They've got some great stuff, and even the isotope, the way that you can drive the harmonic exciters is great. This to me is right up there with the Slate VBC and then the Pultec that they've got. They did an incredible job on those. So sometimes I'll have these in my session with no gain reduction at all. I'm simply using it for the color that it adds and the fullness that it provides from the modeling, the emulation that they did. Lastly, I've got the Clariphonic, and we're pulling up some focus and pulling up a little bit more of clarity, and wanted some air in this one. Wanted quite a bit of top end. And when I first mixed this, when I roughed it in, I just roughed it in. I didn't listen to my reference. And then when I checked it against my reference, I was like, oh, dear goodness. The reference, Jason Mraz track, his acoustic was so bright and so just clear right there. And so these tools are the ones that I use and chose to use to bring up and enhance that top end to get it to sound closer to my reference. So we'll hear what this is doing before. And after. Listen when I take it out. So it almost goes from sounding, without it sounding a little more natural and almost like a guitar player could be sitting right in front of you, to overhyped for that kind of a modern acoustic pop sound. Go figure, we call this mixing acoustic pop. But gives it a little bit more of a sound to it rather than it just sounding like an acoustic guitar. It kind of brings it forward to be a little bit more hyped, airy, and featured. So it stands by itself. I wanted it to sound good against his voice. Jairus has a kind of a brighter voice, and that's the way we treated the picked acoustic. The acoustic it becomes somewhat secondary to the drums and bass in the other sections. Let's take a listen to what it sounds like in there. Little timing issues there, but moving on from the picked acoustic guitar, that the room sound is another cool thing that I did with that. Was I ran it through the Ocean Way short room, just a little bit of a vibe. We'll maybe touch on some of the effects here in a second. The strummed acoustic, I want to get to that. Let's go to towards the end. Very cool. Being that it was the same guitar, and I just wanted those to be kind of a high percussion-y type element. They've got similar treatment to the Verse guitar. You can see we're cutting a lot of the low mids, putting a little bit of the air in on that preset. More than likely, I copied that same preset. And what I'm doing is giving a little bit more attack to this one with the multiband, so that those hits almost serve as a percussive element, almost like a shaker, a high-pitched shaker that's smacking in the hand with a close mic to it. So that attack is key there. The exciter, once again, we're using that to drive some EQ. And then the compression, pretty straightforward stuff, limiting that one to bring it up to volume. Now let's look over here at the Pro Q. This would be where I tend to have sometimes, not every track, but the left side of the inserts in Pro Tools for me, the left side or the top section for you Logic guys or Cubase guys, for me is usually cleanup of that specific instrument what it sounds like, how I'm going to shape it to fit with the other guitars or against the drums, or the first kind of a first level or first layer of processing for me. And then the second side, I typically try to treat that for fitting it in the mix. If that's making sense, this EQ is a prime example of what I'm talking about there, where I'm listening to the mix and I'm EQing this just using my ears, trying to find how I can place this better in the track. And you can see we're boosting another quite a bit of top end, pulling back a little bit of some of the stuff that I didn't like once I boost that so high, controlling a little bit of that air up top. Got a little bit too much up there for me. Let's take a listen to that and see what we get when we bypass it. And then without it, with it. One more time without it. In the mix. And then with it. I'll play that one more time from a little bit further back. This is with it. And without it. Very cool. So without it, if we had the acoustic and it was just by itself, maybe I wouldn't boost so much top end. Maybe I wouldn't take out so much of the lows. Those mids, I probably would still reduce because of the, excuse me, the vocal. Right there in about the 1 to 2K region, I'm carving a little bit of that out so that the vocal sits better. Once you look over at the vocal video, you'll notice that I'm going to boost around that 1 to 2K region. I'm going to find the sweet spot and pull that up. And the cool thing about this is we're not mixing just an acoustic guitar. We're not mixing in solo. So I'm doing the before and after, and I'm walking you through the concepts and what I'm doing plug-in wise and theory wise. But I don't care what this sounds like by itself. I want to make sure that it sounds good to the track. So this EQ itself is a great example of blending it to fit with the song and the track rather than just soloing it and listening to what it's doing, because that may not be what I would do if it were just an acoustic guitar. It's a little rabbit trail there. Again, the Studer for character. I like character. I like the modeling stuff that UA does. Slate has got some great stuff. Some other plugin companies out there are doing some cool stuff. Technology is just taking off. But all this is for the Studer is a little bit of love. So to me, without it, it almost sounds like a toy guitar. The value of the guitar, it sounds like it went from being like a $2,500 guitar to being, $400 or $500 Seagull. Not hating on the Seagulls, but for this track, I wanted it to sound more expensive. And when I put this back in, you'll feel like it gains some body, and then those highs are then pushed forward a little bit more as well, so that we get that percussive thing going on. Here's before. After. Very cool. So just two knobs, the input, the output, and making sure that noise is turned off. That can get a little bit crazy unless you're going for a vintage vibe. Get some hum and hiss and stuff in there. Once again, the LA2A, just for character, this may be hitting a couple dB. So those two work really, really well together, the Studer and the LA2, as well as the Pultec. You can get a little bit overkill. You don't want everything to be, you don't want it to become overly warm, or if that's even such a thing, if that's a bad thing. but you know, just use your ears and make sure that in stages it works well. The Studer and the LA2, that did the acoustics well there. Pretty straightforward stuff on the acoustics. I'm going to link to a couple other videos. I've mixed these acoustics on the channel before. I did like a 4 or 5 part series on mixing acoustic music where I used these guitars and I mixed them for an acoustic demo, these exact same guitars, but I treated them a little bit differently because it was just the acoustics and the vocal for an acoustic version. So I'm going to link to that in the PDF, and make sure that you guys check that out over on our YouTube channel, the Pro Audio Files. And we're going to move on. We're going to close out this video and jump into the clean rhythm electric guitars, the driven guitars, and then the lead guitar solo. It was a lot of fun to work with that one. So moving on to the next video.